So, this is my name. I am Karl Shanley and I'm from Sustainability Victoria. And it's great to be here. Look, I just want to basically give you an overview of what I'm going to talk about today. And that is provide some of the context for what is happening in the waste and resource recovery space in Victoria. Give you an overview and a snapshot of our initiatives around market development in Victoria. Touch on the impacts that we've seen from a Victorian perspective of the China ban and constricting markets globally. And then really get into the heart of why I'm here today, which is talk about the evolution of our R&D initiatives in the Victorian government. Talk about some of our current projects, some case studies, and then some outcomes and observations. I guess in the context of the two presentations before this, Darren from Ricardo and Rob from Lend-Lease provided a really good set of examples of real on-the-ground practical implementation, and Natalie provided an example of the importance of having a policy context for this. So what I'm looking to do is talk about, well, what happens when we recover those resources? What do we do with them, and what are the challenges, and what are some of the learnings around that? So for those of you that aren't familiar with Sustainability Victoria, we are a statutory authority. We are part of the environment portfolio. Effectively, the environment portfolio is a little bit different to some other jurisdictions, the way we have it arranged in Victoria. So the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning is responsible for policy, effectively. We have our Victorian EPA as the regulator. And we have 7 regional waste and resource recovery groups that are responsible for planning and regional delivery of programs. And then we have Sustainability Victoria as the non-regulatory program delivery arm. And effectively, we work across a whole range of areas, but broadly this can be lumped into 2 groups. One around climate change and energy efficiency, and the other is around waste and resource recovery. I'm here to talk about our work in waste and resource recovery and our market development initiatives. We work with households, businesses, local governments, and increasingly other arms of state government. But we also do a lot of work with the broader industry groups and the research sector. Now, just to give you some context, we put all of our information on our waste data portal on our website. I draw your attention to the figures up the top, which really are the quantum of what we're dealing with in Victoria. 12.9 million tonnes of waste items enter our system annually. This is from 15-16, I believe. And we have a resource recovery rate of 67%. I was really pleased this morning to see that we've got a higher resource recovery rate of 72%, according to the slide there. So maybe we'll move with that. But effectively, we recover a lot of resources, but the challenge is doing something with it. And so that's what I'm here to talk about. We, in Victoria, developed the market development strategy for recovered resources. This was developed in 2015 and released in May 2016. We have 6 priority materials that comprise what we've identified as challenging items. E-waste, flexible plastics, rubber from tyres, organics including timber, concrete and brick, and glass fines. Now, what we've seen, and I'll come to talk about this in greater detail, is that with the impact of the China national sword, we've had to rethink our priority materials and indeed increase our recycled priority materials, which are now including paper and card, glass more broadly, and also plastics in general, rather than just focusing on flexible plastics. The 4 key intervention points in the market development strategy are around research and development. So develop that evidence base that will support the use of these materials to have another life. The R&D program is aimed to influence standards and specifications to effectively provide an authorising environment, the big green tick of approval that these materials can be used with confidence. And then, of course, this is cascading. We then want to stimulate product procurement. And increasingly, as a result of the China sword, the Victorian government is ramping up its efforts around government procurement. The Victorian government is the largest procurer of goods and services in the Victorian economy, so it stands to reason that there are significant opportunities there. And of course, we want to see shared responsibility through product stewardship schemes and initiatives. And so SV has a long history of being involved with product stewardship schemes and working to assist industry and other jurisdictions to develop product stewardship schemes. And I'll touch on some of that in a moment. Now, I won't dwell on this because Natalie has kindly provided similar figures, but to say that, and this is Victorian figures, the impact of the China national sword has been very significant in Victoria. This shows the downward trajectory that we've seen in Victoria, and for those of you that aren't from Victoria, over the last 2 years we've seen some really significant challenges prior to the impact of the China sword, but then certainly made all the more challenging by it. Stockpiling of waste and recovered resources is a big issue in Victoria. Fires are a big issue. Criminal enterprise, they're big issues. We're seeing all of these, and it's kind of this wonderful tsunami of difficulties that's facing the sector and, more importantly, the community. We've seen significant fires that have caused evacuations of residents from adjacent to resource recovery facilities. So these are serious matters. But what we've effectively seen is declining sales of scrap paper and cardboard coming out of the curbside system, and virtually an end to the sale of scrap plastics. So this has resulted in stockpiling issues. It's resulted in our EPA, our regulator, stepping in, placing cease to accept orders on one of the major operators, which has caused then 20 councils to have to find new avenues for their curbside materials getting collected. 4 of them were able to find other resource recovery facilities, other MRFs. 16 of them were sending material to landfill. It's not on. So we need to develop a healthy market. This is a significant issue. And the quantum of it really is that in January 2017, around 71% of Australian exports of scrap paper and plastic were going to China. By February 2018, this had dropped to 24% of Australian exports. So that gives you an idea of the market hit that we've faced. Scrap paper dropped from $124 to $0, just wiped it out. Mixed plastic scrap, $325 a tonne to $55 a tonne. And what you can see here is that the grey were the materials that were being exported, and you can see that significant drop. The orange represents the increased aggregation or stockpiling at Victorian reprocessors. So whilst this is a scary picture, this is actually what we want to see. We want to see this, but we want to support it so that there are healthy domestic outlets for this, but that also we cover feedstock that can be put back into the global commodities market. So this represents both a scary picture, but also an image of hope. One of the things that we've just recently done is we've partnered with WAMA to develop a market intelligence service pilot program. And we published our first monthly bulletin representing the month of March. There's a bit of a lag time of month, but it was published in April. We'll be providing 12 monthly bulletins over the coming year, providing a snapshot of the state of play of the recyclables market. So we're putting in place data and information for industry, for community and for government decision makers to understand and assess what is actually taking place in the market. Wow, 10 minutes ago already. So we released the Recycling Industry Strategic Plan, which effectively was a significant injection of funding and resources to tackle these issues. It's underpinned by 4 goals: to stabilise the recycling sector, increase the quality of recovered materials, improve the diversity and productivity of the sector, and importantly, develop markets for recycled materials. So let's get into it. Research, development and demonstration at SV. So the R&D effort underpins our market development strategy. We've identified those priority areas, but importantly, we work with industry and the research sector to work out what those solutions are going to be for those end markets. We don't have all those answers, so all of our R&D is underpinned by collaboration and partnership arrangements, and that's a theme that's been coming through the conference. We aim to identify through these R&D programs what the needs of industry are and where the opportunities are for these materials. And to do this, we then want to establish the evidence base that allows these materials to be used. And for us, performance is key. So performance of these materials is paramount. It is the number one thing. So I take a slightly more conservative view when it comes to, and I'm not a conservative person by my own measure, but I take a more conservative view when it comes to talk around mandating of the use of recycled content. I firmly believe these materials need to actually perform well and create a demand for them. But there are levers that we can take that will support this. Targets might be one way. Investing in R&D, developing partnerships, enabling of specifications, etc. There's a whole range of measures. And I say that because I don't want to see the use of these materials fail. That would be a monumental setback. We don't have enough evidence around the baseline of where the recycled content is being used across a range of sectors and how it's being used. So jumping into targets may well be a blunt solution. I'd be more supportive of a more specific set of targets for different sectors, because working in road, working in rail, working in manufacturing, they're all very, very different. So that's my little rant. Whoa, okay. Timeline. So how did we get here? In 2014-15, prior to having a market development strategy, we began on a journey of identifying some specific R&D challenges. So we engaged a number of universities on a contractual basis. So specific projects that we wanted to investigate. An ad hoc approach, I suppose. In 2015, late 2015, we announced a round of grants for flexible plastics and glass fines. These came online and into contract in 2016. These projects ran for 2 years, and I'll talk about them in a moment. But effectively, we had 7 projects that we were looking at for 2 specific material areas. In 2018, we released round 1 of our current approach to R&D, which is research and development, but also a demonstration stream. And demonstration is really important. I'll talk about that in a moment as well. And then we currently have a round of grants open. So if you're Victorian based or have Victorian operations, I encourage you to apply. But effectively another round of grants. How does all this relate to the circular economy? It's really important because R&D underpins innovation. And so I think we want to move from that linear disposal economy. And I think the key thing on this slide is the rethinking. And that's what R&D does. It allows industry and its partners in the research sector to rethink our use of these materials. So for us, our current round of R&D focuses on, as I mentioned, an R&D stream and a demonstration stream. And this is really important because what we've seen over our last few years in this space is it's one thing to do things in a lab, it's another thing to scale this up and do it on the ground in the field. So this allows us to really work with our partners to commercialise these initiatives. So our key areas that we want to focus on are around product development, performance, standards and specs, improving that confidence, etc. So our round 1 of the most recent round of grants, these are the materials that we focused on. So effectively our market development strategy materials with a couple of others thrown in for good measure. Round 2 has focused largely on issues that are impacting Victoria right now. So curbside material challenges, but our R&D isn't prescriptive to having to source the material from curbside, but effectively we want to see new markets develop for plastics, paper and card, glass, and as of July we have an e-waste landfill ban coming into effect, which is for anything with a plug or a battery no longer will be able to go to landfill. Hence, e-waste is also one of our materials. The details are up there. Our grants are between 50,000 to 200,000. We do recognise in-kind support. We recognise that investing in R&D is a risky proposition. And certainly not everything is successful. So we want to share some of that risk. And so we recognise in-kind support. So it doesn't have to be a cash contribution. So what are we doing in terms of the circular economy? The circular economy first appeared in Victorian strategy document, the market development strategy in 2016. We're now developing a circular economy policy in Victoria, which is much wider reaching than the intent of using this in our market development strategy. So that's a really good thing. It will give us a better framework and perspective of how we're going to challenge these, respond to these issues. But for us in the R&D space, we're largely focused on these areas in the green, which really is that rethinking of how we get these materials back into the economy. So the other side of the diagram is where we invest in recovery, infrastructure, sorting, collection, education, etc. But this R&D space is the other half, and it's a really challenging and dynamic area. So these are just a snapshot of some of our projects. It was interesting listening to the panel discussion this morning. There are significant Australian players involved in these projects. We're working on projects around crumb rubber and asphalt with VicRoads and the Australian Asphalt Pavement Association. We're looking at plastic and rubber in municipal-focused concrete applications with Boral. So we're working with the likes of Boral. We're working with Sammy Bitumen, one of the major bitumen producers, for looking at hybrid use of plastic and rubber in asphalt applications. We're working with Downer, looking at using a range of recycled aggregates for stormwater management, for permeable pavement. So there's a range of things that we're doing, but all of these are underpinned by collaborative partnerships. Similarly, our past round of R&D that focused on flexible plastics and glass fines was done in partnership with APCO. So we want to work and support product stewardship organisations. So we've worked with APCO for these projects. We've also previously worked quite a bit with Tyre Stewardship Australia on some of their initiatives around trying to develop use of rubber and tyre-derived products. With a couple of minutes to go, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, come on. VicRoads and recycled content. We've worked very closely with VicRoads. We've worked with them through our R&D program to amend specifications. There are now specifications that allow a whole range of materials to be used in Victoria. Concrete, brick, glass as crushed rock substitute. So in Class 1 roads, you can use a 5% blend. In Class 4 roads, you can use a 50% blend of recycled product. So huge opportunities. We're working with them a lot on bitumen, crumb rubber, asphalt and spray seals using rubber. They've actually set a target, believe it or not, to double the amount of crumb rubber from tyres that they use. And I'd point out that they've also stipulated that the tyres need to come from Tyre Stewardship Australia accredited sources. We were seeing imported crumb rubber coming into Victoria. We needed to stop that. So we worked with VicRoads to change their specifications to prevent that from occurring. Glass is being used on our major roads. We've used on the Tullamarine Freeway from the airport to Melbourne CBD, 40 million glass bottle equivalents as a sand replacement. So these are huge. So, 375 ml bottle, a glass bottle equivalent, 40 million of them. So huge opportunities here. What we've seen, I'm going to wrap it up, is that effectively, we are now seeing the work that we're doing in one sector translating and being adopted by other sectors. Metro Trains Melbourne has developed a recycled glass specification for pipe embedment and communications embedment that references the VicRoad specification. So we're seeing a standardisation of how we view what the qualities of recycled products and materials should be. This is another cool project, but I've run out of time, so come and talk to me afterwards. But we're working with Integrated Recycling and the Monash Institute of Railway Technology for an 85% recycled content railway sleeper. That's my timer. So, cool things, outcomes and observations. I can go there. Basically, it's important to have flexibility. It's important to have partnerships. It's really important for the demonstration component to scale up. What we do want to see are specifications that actually give confidence to the market that these materials can be used. But number one, we need that commitment from stakeholders, and I think that would be my leaving message. It's a commitment from a whole range of stakeholders here that they're going to do something to respond to this. The R&D will solve the technical challenges. The demonstration will permit the industry uptake to occur. We need supporting infrastructure to allow the feedstock to enter into the market. Right now, we don't have that infrastructure in place in Victoria to support the significant uptake that could occur. We have a reasonable amount of infrastructure, but we need industry investment that's going to enable them to realise the full potential of these materials. We need education and, of course, consumer support. We need people to want to buy these materials, and that's why I say they need to stand on their own. So thank you very much.